All right, y'all, we are here. Welcome, happy Sunday, good day, wherever you are at. We got a diverse audience from across the country. My name is Dr. Reuben. I'm a speaker, consultant, and licensed psychologist. And I am the founder of RTF Liberating Enterprise, where I tell people I'm in the business of liberating people and organizations. I tell people my favorite job. David, I think your mic might be on, brother. You want to mute?
No, it's not my mic. It's not mine.
Yeah. Okay, well, excuse me. My bad.
If anybody does have a microphone on, please mute.
Yeah, cool. Okay, cool. I tell people my favorite job is being a loving human, and I take that job very seriously, and I want to investigate anything that creates connection between us as humans, and one of those things happens to be oppression. So I talk about that to figure out how we can connect better by resolving those things. So let's jump in and talk about framing the work of liberation, the cycle of liberation. All right, so the goals of today, I want y'all to understand and see the value of having tools to make sense of oppression. Because if we don't have tools to help us make sense of the complexity of oppression, it's very easy to get overwhelmed. And when we're overwhelmed, we usually avoid the things that overwhelm us or that create fear for us, and we don't approach them. And if we don't approach oppression, we're not going to get free. All right, we got people coming in. Welcome to people who are coming in, and we're just going to keep going. I want us to practice using a conceptual framework as an agent, as a change agent. And so what I'll do today is I'm going to be talking through this one tool, y'all. This is one tool in your toolbox. And it's going to be the cycle of liberation. I'm going to talk about my journey as a change agent related to race, experiencing racism as an oppressed person, and then also related to gender, experiencing privilege as a privileged man, somebody who identifies as a man. I want you to follow along. So David will send out a link to the cycle of liberation if you don't have it already, or you can Google cycle of liberation PDF and follow along. And I want you to start to think about some of your salient identities and track where you're at in the cycle. And I'll be modeling that. And then towards the end, I might expedite my talking because I want to leave time for you to connect with the other humans who have joined us today. I think connection is one of the most important parts of the grad school journey, so we can receive support. And then I'll have some prompts to help you talk about conceptual frameworks and some other things that we'll get to when we get there. All right, so on the agenda, we're going to do some grounding, and we're going to create a little virtual village. I love doing that. And then I'm going to intro the cycle of liberation. We're going to review it very briefly. I'll leave some time for reactions and questions for me. And then I'll introduce the breakout groups. We'll go to breakout groups for about 20, 25-ish minutes. And then we'll come back for the large group, and then we'll close the event. All right. So some grounding. As I said the first time, for the folks who are coming back, we treat people differently when we see them as our family members or people who are in our community. And so what I like to do is form a village. And so I do this by taking breaths. The breaths are one of the things that unite us across our humanity, because the moment you stop breathing, you die for long enough. And then I like to affirm some community principles. So we'll take 3 breaths. This is the practice one, but we'll inhale through our nose, slow and controlled. Brief pause, and then exhale through our mouths. And we'll take 3. The first breath is going to be a commitment to leave whatever doesn't belong in our virtual village outside of the village. There's a lot of distractions going on. I'm already thinking about what I'm gonna eat later, but I'm gonna leave that outside of this space for now. Number 2 is going to be a commitment to these beautiful humans, some that you might know, many you might not know. And we're just gonna commit and invite them into a community, invite ourselves into a community together. And then last is a commitment to yourself. This is the most important person that you're ever going to meet. You got to go to sleep and wake up being that person. So figure out what you want to get from this time. I don't want to waste your time. So ready? Catch your breath. Again, the first breath is commitment to leave what doesn't belong outside. Second breath is going to be a commitment to our virtual village. And last breath is going to be a commitment to you, the most important person you'll meet. 1, 2, 3. Inhale through your nose. Breathe, pause at the top, and when you're ready, exhale through your mouth. Next breath, the commitment to the community, the village. Inhale through your nose. Pause at the top, and when you're ready, exhale through your mouth. Last breath, the commitment to you. Inhale through your nose. Breathe, pause at the top, and when you're ready, exhale through your mouth. Welcome to the present. Take 2 more breaths on your own. All right. Would you all be willing to drop 1 word to describe how you feel in this very moment, in the present? Just 1 word to describe how you feel. I'm feeling a mix of grateful, gratitude, and a little excitement, and mixed with some sprinkles of anxiety. I think the anxiety might be masking some excitement. I think that's what that's about. Yeah, so drop a word. How you doing? Calm. All right, we got calm, excited to be here, focused. We like that. Amped. Hell yeah, I love that. Yes, we bring in energy. Calm. Good. All right, let's jump in. Keep sharing those 1 words. Feel free to use the chat. This is going to be interactive. I don't like dry presentations, so do whatever you need to make this yours. This is a co-created space. All right, so let's jump in, family. Introduction to the cycle of liberation. So David will send this in the chat, pretty please. And if not, you can Google real quick, Cycle of Liberation PDF, and you will see a copy. It should be the first link. If you can't read this, I know it's a little shifty, but this is a Cycle of Liberation. And this is one of many tools in my liberation toolkit. And so again, I want you to continue to figure out what frameworks you want in your liberation toolkit along your journey, because there's no one perfect tool. There's no one perfect tool, not even this one, even though I really like it a lot. All right, so let's go over some information that is going to help us understand and work through the cycle of liberation. So isms. We're going to go to the basics, y'all. Isms are systems that we all are affected by, sometimes, oftentimes differently, depending on our positionality, but they advantage some groups, usually dominant groups, and then they disadvantage other groups. We call these marginalized or minoritized groups. And this happens via prejudice, stereotyping, and discrimination. This happens at the individual, right? So within us and between us, interpersonal, and then institutional levels having to do with our systems. And when you think of institutions, I want you to think of groups of humans who come together for a certain cause, whether it's media, politics, education, higher education, all right? It can be abstract, but that's why we're trying to root it. So for instance, racism, it advantages people who are identified as white or who are perceived as white or closer to white. And then it disadvantages people of color and Black folks. Sexism, it advantages people who identify or who are perceived as men, and then it disadvantages women. And of course, these are not Black and white groups. There are border identities in between, you know? So if you're gender nonconforming, it depends. But for the sake of this, I want you to think of dominant and then minoritized. And what I want to try to do, and I hope this isn't confusing, but I really want to show us that this tool works across oppression and privilege. I'm going to talk through my liberation journey or parts of my liberation journey, navigating racism and then sexism. So with race, I am marginalized based on that identity. With sexism, I get unearned privilege just for being a man. So I want to talk about both of those. And then I'll talk about the racism more rooted in my grad school journey, and then sexism more broadly in my personal journey. So y'all, liberation, y'all got to figure out what it means for you. For me, it's a process of reducing and ending threats to freedom. So for instance, oppression, we got to reduce it and or end it. Suffering, I don't want to see people suffer. There's already going to be some natural suffering, but the unnecessary suffering, I want to rid the world of that. I think of it as a practice of love, because when you really love yourself, you see your humanity in other people. It's deep, gets on some deep levels. But so when I really love myself, I don't want to see people who I see as extensions of me hurt or suffer. I don't care who you are. It's okay if that's not where you're at in your journey. You got to figure out what liberation is for you. That's what it is for Dr. Reuben. Y'all, like I said, this is a guide. This is not a how-to. Like if you just read the cycle of liberation, you got it, you're getting it wrong. This is a tool of many. I want you to think of this as a tool in your toolbox. You can't build a house with just one tool. You got to have a diverse set of tools, and this is just one. And I want you to understand there's a value of continuing to build this toolbox. Also, y'all, everybody's at a different point. And some people, are going to move at a pace that's different than other people. And that's okay. There's room and space for everybody to be where they're at, right? So this is not, I'm going to talk about it like in a linear way, but it's not. Some people start in the systemic space. Some people start in the interpersonal spaces. Some people start with themselves, right? And that's okay. So I just want to normalize that. Some people are going to be moving faster. Some people are going to be moving slower. Some people are not moving. And that's okay. Again, this tool is just going to help us better understand. Woo. All right, y'all. So one of the most important parts I think about this tool and our liberation journeys generally is figuring out what's at your core. What are your core values that are going to drive you through your process of liberation? Because this is not easy work. If it was easy work, we wouldn't have suffering and oppression in the world. Everybody would be liberating. But this is a hard, arduous journey. And when you are connected with what your core values are, that's what's going to help push you through those difficult moments, right? So for me, love is at the core. It hasn't always been like that. Anger used to be at the center of my liberation. And I don't fault anger. And I actually think it was righteous anger. And I think I needed that anger to get to where I am today. So I don't want you to think, well, Reuben thinks that everybody should just love. No, like whatever's at your center is at your center. I needed to be angry. This is a version of my anger coming out. And I learned, like, I don't want anger to be the center of my liberation. I want it to be love, because anger is rooted in fear, and fear disconnects me from other people. And love, it's different. It's abundant. It's not going to burn me out. It's really helping me connect with myself and other people on a deeper level. Passion. People who know me know I'm a passionate person, for better or worse. I know this is a part of me in my liberation journey, and it helps me do really tough things and courageous things that a lot of people might not want to do. Hope, especially us as psychologists, y'all. When I'm on clinical teams with other psychologists, sometimes they start getting hopeless, and I get it. The vicarious trauma, compassion fatigue, it's real. And I tell folks, we got to be hope dealers. We got to be hope dealers. The society is already dark. There's already enough hopelessness in the world. We got to be doing our internal work so we can acknowledge the hopelessness and be with it and get back to that place of having hope. Balance for me is very important. Y'all, this work will burn you out if you don't learn how to create boundaries and balance in your life. You got to know when the right time to do the work is and when to lean out and lean back. I talk about joy a lot. There were times in my liberation journey, experiencing oppression where it made me sad and it hardened me. Y'all, if y'all can, mic your or mute your mic so we don't get interference in the recording, please. Joy. Yeah, I was like, I'm not smiling anymore. What the hell is wrong with that? What's going on with that? And so I had to intentionally realize, like, Reuben, you got to center joy. You can't let oppression strip you of your joy. So that's what I centered. Community. You can't do this work alone. It's going to come up in the cycle. Confidence. This is, whew, people do not like seeing confident Black men. It just goes against the norm. Or confident women, or confident people with different abilities. Like, people do not like to see oppressed people who are confident, because it breaks the norm, or the stereotypes about, the negative stereotypes about those groups oftentimes. So I center it. And then for me, my spiritual connection, I grew up Christian. I don't identify heavily with the organized religion, but I take a little bit of everything from all spiritual and religious beliefs and figure out what works for me to customize it for me. So I want to invite you all to do that. We are spirits and body bags. All right, so let's go through this, because again, I don't want to be talking to y'all this whole time. I want you all to be talking with each other. So let's start with the cycle of liberation. I know it might look complex, but y'all, it's really broken into 3 main categories. Intrapersonal, having to do with processes inside of us. Interpersonal, having to do with interacting with different humans. And then systemic or institutional, having to do with these more abstract structures that we as humans create. All right, so let's start with the quote unquote beginning, but remember, there is no beginning. We all start at different points. Waking up. So this is usually an experience that creates dissonance. You have an idea of yourself, someone else, or the world, and that is shaken up. You know, this is people waking up, quote unquote, or raising their consciousness, or when you learn something new in class, it just goes against what you thought you knew. A lot of my early counseling classes were doing that. It was just punching me in my throat, like, dang, like, I didn't know that about that group of people. And so the people who came to the first presentation, you might have heard some of this, but August 9th, 2014, Michael Brown was shot and killed 2 hours away from our campus at Mizzou. And it changed me. It sent me into a deep depression, because it finally clicked for me. I could be Michael Brown. Like, it doesn't matter all the social status I have. You know, Michael Brown was on his way to college. I was just starting grad school. Like, there were so many similarities, and it finally hit me that my Black ass, if I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong law enforcement officer, I could be dead. And it shook me up. It really shook me up. It changed my belief system about a lot of things. So I'm going to talk about racism, and then I'm going to talk about my journey through navigating sexism. And so these, I grew up in a family of 5 sisters, and I was the only boy. And so these are my 5 sisters. And, you know, growing up, if you would have asked me about sexism and men's issues, I would have said, you're crazy. Like, you know, like, there's equality, or, you know, men don't treat women differently. But when I started to learn about the experiences of my sisters dealing with men, and, you know, even some of them being assaulted sexually or physically, it snapped me out of it. It was like, oh shit, like, it might not be you, or it might not be similar to how you behave, but this is a real thing. Sexism is real, Reuben, and you can't deny it. It's happening to the very people you love. And so again, it shook my idea of the world up, where, you know, men aren't problematic as a group, as a whole. All right, so moving along, getting ready. I think about this stage, and again, these stages aren't black and white, like one ends, one starts. You know, it's more gray. But I think about this is a deprogramming and then a reprogramming. So if we're all programmed into our identities, some of those programs aren't helpful. And then we start learning about that, and then we start reprogramming ourselves, you know, through introspection, education, raising our consciousness, being more authentic with ourselves, and dismantling unhelpful beliefs. And so for me, I talk about the first demonstration I ever went to, you know, so after Michael Brown was shot and killed in Ferguson, I was not getting the support that I needed from my peers in my program, from my professors, from my program, my department. I was not getting it. And so I said, I got to just figure out where anybody who cares about Black people and Black people's humanity like I do, where are they? And so 3 queer Black women, they held a demonstration, and it changed my life. And this is the die-in that they did. This is the student center. I wish you could see everything, but you were not getting through the student center that day. And to see 3 queer Black women speaking truth to power, it was like, oh my God, this is motivating me. This is something that I need. So it was a part of my re-socialization. It's like, no, I don't just have to settle for Black people getting shot and killed, you know, or a shitty graduate student experience. Like, I can do something about it, and I'm watching it. So that was a part of me getting ready. Navigating sexism. I think when being authentic, I had to really connect with myself and say, Reuben, like, you are not treating women good. Like, you are treating women like objects. You are treating women like sexual conquest. Like, that's not okay. And just because other men are doing it does not make it right. Or just because it doesn't look the same or as bad as other men doesn't make it right. Wrong is wrong. And so I really had to confront that. And that was a part of me, getting ready for new information and putting myself in positions where I could start to receive information that conflicted with my programming as a man. Really big, really scary too. And I imagine, especially with privilege, this is what makes a lot of people hesitant to continue the process, because it is scary to release this idea of self, or what you attach yourself to, this identity, for so long. All right, so that's intrapersonal. We're going to move to interpersonal. We cannot do it alone, y'all. We got to have other people helping us in our liberation journey, especially if we want to create systemic level change. So let's go through it, because time is of the essence. All right, so reaching out. Think of this as connecting with other people, putting yourselves in uncomfortable situations. One thing I loved about my counseling program is early on, we had to do an immersion activity where we had to find a group that we weren't so comfortable with and to connect with that group. So it's just one idea of how we reach out and connect with people who are similar and different than us. But for the sake of this, and why I have this picture of me at a protest, this is where I started to connect with other people who were quote unquote activists or in the activist circuit, and really starting to learn more about things that I didn't know, like intersectionality. It's like, you're not just oppressed as a Black person, Reuben. You have privilege as a man too. And like, how does that create a relative experience for you? And what does that mean when you're around other Black women or queer Black people, or people who have different identities for you? So just really trying to learn and be open to information from other people. In my journey with sexism, connecting with all kinds of women. I used to think that Asian women just did not like me. They would not make eye contact with me. And what I learned was eye contact is very cultural, and there's cultural differences. And so this is me with one of my friends in grad school early on, just talking, like just sitting and rapping and talking and learning. Building community, so working with people who are like us and different than us. Coalition building, so we don't have to always join other people's groups. Sometimes we just need to collaborate over interest convergence, and that's okay. Questioning, again, continuing to question structures and norms and rules in community. And so this is a picture of the group Concerned Student 1950. What's unique about this group is there's 7 women. I think they're all undergraduate. And then there are 3, 4 men, right? So, there can sometimes be this tension between undergraduates and graduate students. It's like, no, like, we know that there's similarities and differences in the experiences. How can we try to make sense of all of it in community with each other? And by doing that, we were able to amplify our voices in a very unique way. So instead of administration just waiting for undergraduates to graduate and not do anything, we had some of the maturity and some of the longevity to see some of those things not only unfold, but to address them and say, no, you can't wait this out. You cannot wait this problem out. We're going to be here as graduate students for the long run. Not too long though, because y'all, I want y'all to get those degrees and get the hell out of grad school. All y'all. Y'all got in, now get out. All right. Regarding my sexism journey. Uh-oh, where's my picture? Let's see. Oh, my friend Della. Y'all don't know Della Mosley. She's a shaker. But what I continue to do is continue to develop relationship with women who are different. So I actually didn't, I mean, this is actually one of the first times I met Della. Like I met Della through some activism, and like I was invited to join a paper after what was going on at Mizzou, like after it blew up. If you don't know the story, you got to come to a keynote or just Google Mizzou 2015. But I bring this up because, again, we've created community, and because I've entered, and Della and I have co-created community between ourselves and with other people, you know, I've been able to support things that she's done, you know, academics for Black Lives. Now she's out of academia, she's kicking ass. And I just look for opportunities to continue to support her and other women. So this was, I think at a conference, APA, we had some breakfast, and she reserved us a spot. It was really nice, this busy restaurant. So this was having a good time. Again, community. All right, coalescing. So eventually you build this community. What's the community gonna do? Like, y'all, liberation is a verb. You gotta do something, shin. You gotta be doing, it's a process. So at some point, we gotta start organizing for action. Again, this is another block for a lot of folks. A lot of people will talk about it, but when it comes to doing it, it's a different thing. So this is one example of coalescing for change. So 2 graduate students, 2 undergraduate students, and we wrote letters to the chancellor and like 4 senior provosts at our university saying, y'all aren't doing y'all's job. This is a campus climate. You got students saying they want to kill themselves because they don't feel like they belong on campus, and because of these real experiences of racism. And then y'all are telling us at these race forums that y'all are doing what you can and just wait. And we got tired of that. And so we said, we need an agenda and we need y'all to do something. And if not, we are going to highlight the problems on campus in a very loud way. And we ended up doing that because they didn't give us what we needed. They were not able to meet our needs. So another example of coalescing. So, you know, I had a friend, this is my friend, Ariel in Gainesville. She actually wasn't my friend at first. I met her through another friend, and she wanted to do something after George Floyd. You know, she wanted to have a small demonstration. She expected 50 people. When I got there, 50 people turned into 3,000 people. And it was a beautiful event. And I talk about this because I look for opportunities to support women. And this is one of them. If you see me, I try to get in the background because there's sexism wants to norm men being at the front, even in social movements. Again, this stuff happens everywhere, even in activist spaces. These isms show up. And so I'm always trying to be mindful of how can I amplify or center the experience of women. So even like in this picture, this is me trying to get to the back. I'm 6'4", so it's kind of hard sometimes. If you can, mic your mute, so mic your mute. Mute your mic so we don't get interference, because we're going to record this so other students can show or see this. But yeah, so this is my effort to be in the back. All right, systemic level, we're getting towards the end, y'all. Again, systems have to do with structures. I know it can seem abstract, but think of humans that come together for a cause. Think of education, think of politics, the legal system, right? Higher education, you know, based on some of our roles, we are representations of the institution. All right, creating change. Y'all, this is where we do things to create changes in policies and practices, whether they're overt or covert, changing assumptions, structures, norm, working to share power, especially when we have privilege in our institutional roles. Let's talk about it. Oh, so this is my dissertation defense. So, you know, it'll be in a book one day, but basically after all this intense protest and activism and the university saying they support us and the college saying they support us, I was transitioned out of my DEI job for the college. And it was a very dark time for me because, you know, if you don't have an assistantship, you don't get your tuition waiver. Luckily, I had found and made enough connections to where I was able to start teaching this class that was offered through our program called ESCP 2000. which was a very unique class because it was an intergroup dialogue based class. So instead of me getting to the front of the class and dumping information into people's brains, we sat in a circle and we all became a part of the curriculum. And it was a very powerful experience because it taught me if you can create the right conditions for humans to grow, they will grow. And so I got super passionate about it. You know, Dr. Lisa Flores, Joy Moore, Chris Riley Tillman, Keith Herman, these are all the people in this picture. They saw that passion, and I ended up making it my dissertation. And so normed the curriculum and trained fellow graduate students to teach the course. And we had about like 5 sections. And eventually that class became a requirement. So that's that systemic piece where we lock things in that are going to be helpful towards liberation for all incoming students into the college. So that's a beautiful gift that I left Mizzou before I got the hell out of there. And so this is me. This other picture is me talking to a group of women. So there's a group called PACE, a group for women, young youth who might come from what they call at-risk backgrounds, difficult backgrounds. And so I put this picture in here because this is an effort of me trying to use my power as a man to create spaces where I can share that power, you know, where I can create corrective experiences for women who might not have had positive experiences with other men, because there is a problem with sexism and women are targeted by sexism and by men. And so I look for opportunities to heal those wounds for women when possible. It's not always possible, and that's okay. But this is an example of it. And so I forgot exactly what the discussion was. I think it was focusing on your goals, but it was a really rich conversation. All right. Maintaining, so strengthening. So once there is change, you got to be careful, because I thought once there's change, it's just done. We at Mizzou, when we accomplished some of our goals, with racism and getting some leaders removed from their position, I thought racism was beat naively. But if we're not careful, things will go back to how they used to be. And so we have to maintain that change. We have to reinforce the things that we want to see. So if you see somebody doing some change behavior, support them, let them know it, let them know that that's positive. Like, don't leave them hanging, don't leave them dry. That's a very dark, lonely place to be as a liberator. And so we want to strengthen, we want to integrate this change. We want to celebrate change. And we want to hold ourselves and other people accountable to change. A lot of these universities say things in their value statements, but their behavior is different. No, we got to be accountable. So this is at Mizzou when the chancellor and the president resigned. I think the students were the quad, this big open space. They were swag surfing, just having a good time, really celebrating the joy of a win, because y'all, this work is challenging. And if you don't celebrate the wins, it's easy to fall into that hopelessness and helplessness. And so we gotta celebrate wins. It's very important, even if they're small. All right, on this right, this is Dr. Reuben speaking. One thing that I continue to do is talk about my journey through isms, including sexism, especially because many guys don't do it. And I think it's important to normalize that men can change, for men and for women and everybody in between. Like, we can all grow and change. And so I've worked through my shame and guilt and disappointment with myself for how I behaved in the past, because I was not perfect. I was harmful in some ways. And I share it as a testimony to say, like, all right, we're all programmed. What are you going to do with it? I decided to change. You can too. If I can change, you can do it too. All right, so that's the cycle of liberation, y'all. I'm wondering what reactions you all are having to the content, what questions you have about the cycle of liberation. Yeah, we got about 5 minutes to do this before we go to breakouts. So questions, comments, concerns for me, questions about the cycle of liberation, what would help you in your journey as a change agent? Feel free to stop the recording too, David, when you can.